You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to The Real Short Box. My name is Donald, and I am here with two very special guests. I'm here with one Christopher D. Turner, writer, producer, director. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And also another very special guest, one animator and cartoonist, Louie C. Thanks for joining, Louie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, always a pleasure to have such fine folks as yourself on our podcast. So thank you for joining. Today we're going to be talking about kind of a little bit of a crossover hybrid, video games that made its way into comic books, and then comic books that made its way into video games, and animated series and movies and everything pretty much in between. But the whole point of this is video games and comic books. So let's go ahead and get started here. Louie, I know you've been chomping at the bit to talk about video games in general in a podcast, and I'm so glad we're finally able to do that. So I'm going to throw the ball over into your court and let you do the first one that comes to your mind.
Well, when it comes to video games, the first thing that comes to my mind is Nintendo. I believe the Nintendo was pretty much, a part of everyone's childhood growing up. I mean, how can anybody forget the great games like Super Mario Brothers 3, Zelda, the list goes on and on and on. So I've always felt that, Nintendo games have always had strong characters, a lot of strong villains, stories. So I've always been wanting to know exactly how any of these characters would translate into live action or animation or etc. And I believe that there's a couple of them in there that I think is worth exploring. I think like A Legend of Zelda could definitely work as kind of like an anime series on Netflix, or Kirby could be kind of like a nice little a little short you could also throw, let's say, on Amazon. So there's a lot of good stuff there when it comes to transferring a couple of video game characters on, let's say, to animation, and some could be in live action.
Yeah. Nintendo is a wealth of great properties. I think the only problem with them is they hang on pretty tight to them, and with good reason. I get it. Why we've never gotten a Metroid film or a Castlevania film, to me, is just basically criminal. I mean, those seem like properties that would be amazing in comic book form, in film form. I know we got a taste of both of them in a way in the Captain N cartoon series that they created back in the 80s. But yeah, I just wish we would see more of those properties, to be honest.
I guess I think it all started with the live action movie of the Super Mario Brothers movie that happened like back in like '93. I believe that one was pretty much the one movie where Nintendo's like, no, we're not going to license any of our Nintendo properties to Hollywood ever again. And I get it. I mean, one bad movie could damage your brand for a long time. So I think it's because of that movie they were hesitant to do a Zelda movie or a Metroid movie or even Castlevania. So I get it from a business point. I get why they never want to do business with them. But I think over the last couple of years, they have loosened up a little bit. I think it was like a movie called Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where they were able to get away with some of the sound effects. I mean, if you listen to some of the sound effects, they were very Nintendo-ish like. I think they got something from Zelda's, like from the original game, I believe. Huh.
Really?
It's similar, or maybe loosely of it. So
okay, so you don't think that they asked explicitly for permission to do that? They just kind of riffed off of it, like a parody almost.
I believe so. I mean, if it had known, Nintendo would have sent their lawyers the next day, like, oh no, you can't use this, take it out. But I think they're loosening up a little bit now with Nintendo. I'm at Castlevania is on Netflix right now, a really good, strong series. and their next season is coming out, I believe, this week. And
Yeah, that's right. We do have the Netflix. I think it's the fourth volume that's coming soon.
yes.
Yeah, and it's more like an anime style of being the way it's drawn and almost the way it's told as well, which is great. I just really want to see that live action Castlevania. I really, really want to see it.
But which Belmont would you go with?
Simon, of course.
Oh yeah, Simon Belmont. I mean, he's got the Belmont family versus Dracula. I mean, that's a 3-part movie for you right there.
I totally agree. Chris, what property would you select from Nintendo if you had like one property that you could select to be a feature film or an animated series?
I mean, the one that definitely fits best to a entertainment world, like via TV or movie or anything like that. That's not comic book or anything like that, or video game, would of course be Legend of Zelda. I mean, it's has Game of Thrones quality fantasy world written all over it. I mean, the different types of characters and just, the hero Link and all that stuff. That's the one that I'm hoping and dreaming. And there was the rumored Netflix series that was, rumored about 10 years ago, maybe. And then once the rumors came out, Nintendo squashed it. I mean, it was, the news is that it was actually happening, but it came out too soon. And so Nintendo was like, we're not ready, so we're not doing it. Now there's new rumors flying around. So hopefully something, it may end up being animated, like they're doing in a Super Mario Brothers animated film. They might do Zelda, or hopefully I'm still holding out hope that we're going to get a TV series or something of Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, that's a really solid choice. And you're right. It does have like a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones style feel, or even a Dungeons and Dragons kind of a escape to it, landscape to it. And I think that they could really do something wonderful with that property. And I thought at one point they were going to. I don't know whatever happened to it though.
Yeah, like I said, the Netflix was doing a TV series, and then I guess somebody let it out of the bag early, and Nintendo was like, "Oh, wait, hold a minute, never mind, we're not doing this."
Yeah,
you didn't let us be the ones to announce it, because they're pickled like that. They like their announcements.
Well, I don't want to say it's the Japanese culture in general, because that could be misspeaking on that, but I do notice that, like with Godzilla in particular, they're very protective of Godzilla and the film choices. And like, I think that this last film that we saw, Godzilla versus Kong, is the last of the legendary production companies, legendary studios, being able to do them unless they renegotiate a deal with the production company that owns, and the creators that own the rights to Godzilla in Japan.
There actually is rumors that Son of Kong is coming up next. They're asking the same director as from the last one to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kong would be a different, under a different, I think, under a different banner, under a different creator and stuff, if I recall. So I don't think that, yeah, so they could definitely do Son of Kong and go that route. And I think that's a smart way to do it while they wait to bring other properties. I would like to see a Gamera, like Gamera, type series. That would be great.
So if they do move forward, let's say if Legendary Pictures decides to move forward with the monster universe, who would be the next big bad monster, let's say for Godzilla or King Kong in the future? I mean, once you do Kong versus Godzilla, where do you go? And who's the next one they will fight?
That's a good question.
Because it seems like that one is like the end game of all monsters.
Yeah.
Once you have Godzilla versus King Kong, that's it. So
we talked about that in a recent video podcast that we do on YouTube under the Rumble Spoon Productions banner there on their page. We talked about our top 10 favorite kaiju, which is just top giant monsters in general. And Chris, I believe you were on that podcast.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And so this is actually a good question to ask us, Louis. It's right within our wheelhouse relatively recently from when we did do that. So people that are listening, if you want to check out that video podcast, you can certainly do so on the Rumble Spoon Productions page on YouTube. But Chris, what would you think as far as like if there was one left, like one character, who do you think it would be?
See, I don't know, because like I would have said Mechagodzilla, but can't.
Right.
But, like, I was like, bring him, find a way to make Mechagodzilla an alien or something, and have him come down from another planet or something. I don't know. I really don't. It's a hard question. I'd have to think about that one.
I don't see why we wouldn't see a Destroyer. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Destroyer would be pretty cool.
I think that would be something that that they could easily do. Another giant kind of a monster type creature that is basically kind of like King Ghidorah as far as like just a huge alpha threat. And or they could go the route of Gamera, and they could have him, like they just did with Kong, have him fight Gamera and then spin Gamera off into his own series of movies. I'm really pushing Gamera, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
He's a great monster.
Yeah, he's great. He's like a Ninja Turtle before he knew that he was too large to be a ninja.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There is another monster that hasn't been used too that I would love to see in the future. I know we're talking about like characters like Mechagodzilla, Mecha Ghidorah, or Mecha Kong.
Yeah. Boy, that'd be really freaky to see how they would do Mecha Kong now, but they could definitely do that, especially if they're doing Son of Kong and stuff and they're spinning that off.
Yeah, they have the technology like in that world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They could do that. Like that guy, and like his son or something decides to try to, seek vengeance or whatever, or, some crazy mad scientist plot always works well.
The sequel could be like a tag team, Kong and Godzilla again against, Mecha Ghidorah and Mecha Kong or something like that. That'll be almost like a tag team wrestling.
Yeah, and speaking of mad scientists, we just recently, last year, I think back in February, we saw Sonic the Hedgehog. It was extremely successful. It did very well for Paramount, I believe. And that one has, who was it? Was it, what is his name? Dr. Robotnik? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, he played the villain, and Jim Carrey played that villain. And so that's your mad scientist right there, like one like Dr. Robotnik. But that Sonic the Hedgehog movie was very good, and it very much emulated the fun of the Archie series that has been going on for forever. Archie acquired the rights to Sonic the Hedgehog as a comic book and have been going with that solid for 20, 30 years now, something like that.
Yeah. And to think, out of all the video games that have came out in the last 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
how many good ones can you name off the top of your head that says I think that's a good adaptation of the game or represents the game perfectly? I mean, there's really not a lot. I mean,
No,
like 3.
Maybe like the first Mortal Kombat was pretty fun.
I wouldn't even put that in there after rewatching it recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad fun.
Yes.
I would put Resident Evil on that list, though.
Yeah. The first.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. So like Mortal Kombat, Resident Evil. Like, what else is on that list? I'm like, no, there really isn't a lot in there.
Sonic the Hedgehog. But
that would be another. Yes.
You're right. It's really hard. I guess you could say technically the Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but that went the other way. They did the comic book, and then they started the cartoon, and then the video game came along, and then they did the movie, if I recall. That's how it worked in that order.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did Turtles, I can't remember the original Turtles, did they go back in time?
In the movies?
In the original comic book, in the original run of the comics.
Oh, I think so. I think they did go back in time.
I was gonna say otherwise they go back in time in Turtles 3, and there's also a video game, arcade game, Turtles in Time. So I don't know if that was a connection or not. That came out before Turtles 3, so
the video game was much more enjoyable than the movie, I will say. Although one thing that we have to give credit to Turtles 3, the movie, is that they brought Casey Jones back into the fold.
Probably the biggest that really redeemed the movie. I mean, he was completely absent from the second movie.
Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah, it's like, oh, where's Casey? I love Casey. And then disappointed, but then when he's number 3, I'm like, oh, great, Casey's back. Awesome.
Yeah, and you had Ernie Reyes Jr. for like one movie. He was in Turtles 2, and then he disappears. It's just like these characters just pop in and out of their lives. I feel sorry for the Turtles. They can't keep friends except for April, and they're all pining for her, and she's never going to love just one of them. She loves Casey. It's just sad. Sad for the Turtles.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what would you have liked the third movie to have been? I mean, in retrospect, when you look back at the series of films, how would you like the third one to be? In your view?
Krang appears. Meanwhile, Michelangelo and Raphael order a prostitute. And there's a ring at the door. And they're at April's place, and April's at work, and they answer the door, and it's Krang, and it's not the prostitute. And like Raphael looks at Michelangelo, and he's like, "Dude, what did you order?" And then like Krang pops in, and like all the foot soldiers come in, and then Hello and Sue's, and then rat catchers or whatever. The Mousers appear, and it would be amazing. But it has to start with the prostitute. I have no idea why. It just sounds funny. We already did the pizza thing, so they're older now. They're more mature. Hormones are going.
Well, my two favorite villains from Ninja Turtles is Rat King and Leatherhead, so I'd like to see a third movie with them.
So they did. We're not counting the new Paramount Ninja Turtle series that they did. I think they did 2 of those.
Yes,
they did 2. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were. My personal opinion, they were pretty bad. Yep. They were not the Turtles that we knew. They were not the Turtles that we loved. And the characters, I was very happy to see Rocksteady and Bebop on the big screen. That was great. And to see Krang on the big screen was also kind of cool. But that wasn't the right Krang. That wasn't the Rocksteady and Bebop. I think were pretty close, so I'll give them that. And Krang was okay. Actually, I think the second film is better than the first for that reason alone, because of the introduction of those characters. And that's what kind of makes the series, is those characters as well as a wealth of other characters that they bring into the fold. So, yeah, the Ratcatcher was really cool. I remember there was this one crazy-looking turtle that was a bad guy, and I can never remember the name of him.
Slash?
That's it. Yes, Slash. And they had Slash in there, so it would be cool to see, because we already had had Toka and Razor, so I guess that's where they covered that. But yeah, there's Leatherhead. There's that that giant bee that was in there. I'm just thinking about all the cartoon in the comic book characters.
Yeah, there's the Triceratons, which are a major presence in the comic books.
Yeah,
and the video game for that matter.
Yeah.
You could tell the stories with the Fugitoids as well.
Yes, yeah, that'd be a good story, actually.
That would be a very good story. I remember that.
They could adapt City of War. I'm going forward, in a real ideally, if I ever wanted to see a brand new Ninja Turtles today, I would just have it go back to the roots. I mean, they've done everything from cartoony to getting kind of silly. Sometimes they go a little serious, and it's almost feel like they've gone through almost every incarnations of the Turtles you can think of. So what's the one area they haven't really done with the Turtles as of late? And they never really have done, let's say, the Mirage version of the comics, the ones where there were actually ninjas and they all had red bandanas as opposed to multicolored bandanas.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a nice change of pace, but we'll see.
You can't sell toys if they're all the same color, though.
Can't sell toys.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to sell toys that way, which is exactly why they did that. And you know what? Honestly, it was a very smart move from a marketing standpoint and for kids. Because as children, we associate color very easily with, personalities and so forth. And it just made a lot of sense to associate that, like blue for like a pure, leader type, and red for somebody that's comical and sassy, and orange for somebody that's kind of a surfer dude, and then purple can be like mature and electronical, and like so it kind of made sense in a way with these colors. So somebody sat down and thought about it a little bit, which is a good thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you can have I think you can have both. One that can be catered towards kids, because obviously that's the target audience, and the other ones could be catered to, let's say, someone like you and me, that not only love the original series but also love the Mirage or the more darker version of the Turtles. So I think you can get both. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago when they did Tales from the Crypt, there was the HBO version of that series, and then you had the one that was on Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
So they pretty much catered to two different audiences, but still keep the name, knowing that okay, this is for kids, this is one for adults. So I think there is kind of a happy medium that you could do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Having all these different varietals of it is not necessarily a bad thing. I think if you did the city what was it called? City of War or City at War?
City of War. Yeah. City of War.
If you did that storyline, I think that would kind of be the finality of it, unless they went back and did the Last Ronin story, which they're currently working on now.
Oh yeah, that series is so good.
Yeah,
and that's one that actually, Chris, that brought you back into comic books a little bit, then, did it not?
Actually, I mean, more brought me back to buying in comic books. I've been reading online comic books for a while.
Oh, okay.
With the Turtles, like about 2 years ago, I really got into the Turtles again. I went back and reread all the original, and then I got caught up in all the current IDW, and also, I read the Urban Legends and the Universe and all those other ones. But the Last Ronin got me back into buying physical comics again, and doing all that sort of comic-y.
Yeah.
Don't read it, just save it type stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You were talking about a series that you were reading currently, that you've been reading. It's based off of a video game, if I recall. Is that what you said?
Yes, it is currently. It's called, the current series is called Dragon Age Dark Fortress. It is by Dark Horse, and basically it's there was another series before that came out. It was called Dragon Age Mage Killer, and they've been doing a few. And it is a video game came out called Dragon Age Inquisition, which was the third in the series of these role-playing games. Basically, it's a very large fantasy world, kind of like World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons type world, where basically it's a story basically follows an inquisitor who is like set on a journey to settle like a civil war in these continent, and like this weird tear that brings monsters into the world, and so they're trying to band everyone together to fight, kind of very Lord of the Rings type. So that's instead of a ring has to just be destroyed, they have to like get these people together to seal the breach. So it's a little bit different, and so basically the game follows the Inquisitor and his team, and in the comic book, basically takes different characters from the world and kind of throws us into this world and kind of world builds with minor characters more in the game at all. They just create new characters. Like this current one I'm reading is about mage hunters who are hunting, and you get to really learn a lot more about the different races in the game and about the characters, and you can bring back some of the characters, but not through the eyes of the characters, but through other people. And I really loved the game and being able to go back in that world, and it's a really good series. Again, the one right now is called Dragon Age Dark Fortress. It's in the second issue just came out this last week.
Oh, okay. Nice. Sounds good. Sounds like something that would be right up my alley. I love Lord of the Rings. I love Game of Thrones. I love Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. So, yeah.
I mean, there is no like setup, so like it really just throws you into this world and knowing, like, expecting you to know the world. So there's a bit of a learning curve there in the sense of, well, you can't just pick it up as a new reader and be able to get it right away, but it's very entertaining. You just might be a little bit confused at first.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit confused all the time, so I don't think it'd be much difference for me. Louie, what do you think about that? Is that something that would be, up your alley? Are you kind of a guy that likes sword and fantasy type stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I love like playing like D&D or role-playing games or anything fantasy like Lord of the Rings, Tobin books. That's definitely like right up my alley for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds really cool. I do want to briefly mention. I know we're getting a little low on time, so I briefly want to mention a few things that I think we can all actually mention some of the stuff that we would like to see. I would love, like, they did a comic book series, and I think it was for Dynamite Entertainment, and it was the Phantom, like the last Phantom. So it was telling the story of basically the last Phantom that there ever will be or ever was. And he's just like this older, haggard Phantom that's like still trying to protect his jungle and his people and stuff. And I thought just seemed so cool. And Billy Zane's older now, and that film actually is seen like as pretty good now. Like a lot of people enjoyed it for its time. It didn't make any money really, so to speak. But I think if they went back and revisited the idea and they brought back Billy Zane and they did a movie for that, I think that could reinvigorate the comic book. I think it could reinvigorate an idea on an animated series, maybe like via Netflix or Amazon. I think it'd be super cool. And they could even do, like, if they wanted to just set it in 2040, like they did with the Phantom 2040 cartoon, which was also a comic book and a Sega Genesis video game. I don't remember if it was on Nintendo, but it was on Sega Genesis for sure. Pretty tough video game, actually, but a lot of fun. And it came out, I think, like in 94, somewhere around there, 94, 95. So I think that would be a super cool one. Another series that I was thinking about that I used to play a lot of, and it actually got me in trouble in college because I played it so much that I started to fail some stuff, was Gauntlet. Gauntlet was an old, like, Nintendo series, like another sword and sorcery type thing that I think needs a little bit of a revival. It could be put into a comic book form and then put into a TV series or a feature film or even an animated series. I think that one just reeks of needing to be out there for the world to, like, enjoy again. I love that series so much in the video game world alone.
Yeah, I think Gauntlet may be like one of the best games to come out of the late 90s.
Yeah. They did Gauntlet Dark Legacy, which I think was like that one was in the 2000, I think 2001, somewhere around there. And I played the shit out of that, like so much so. Just kind of crazy how much I played it. And like my grades really suffered. So I stopped buying video game systems after that because it was just like, I got addicted, guys. I got bad addicted. And it's that game's fault.
I think there are actually only like 3 that come off the top of my head. The first one would be Contra. Just imagine a Michael Bay kind of movie where it's just explosions, guns, car chases, fire, and you have aliens from outer space and monsters and just kind of like, absolutely just insane. That would probably be one that that would be so much fun to see as a movie or as an animation. I think there's a lot of cool things you could do with Contra to just go full 80s approach to it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Full on 80s approach to it. I would love to see that.
I'm talking more like in the vein of like our Schwarzenegger or Stallone action films.
Right. Obviously, we can't have them in it, but like maybe, somebody else like Baptista or Statham or something like that. Somebody that's still spry enough that they could jump out of a helicopter and not break a hip.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the original box cart for those games? I mean, it was almost pretty much Arnold and Sly.
Yeah. Hey, what was that one video game where it was a video game, but it was also like an actual within the video game, it was a game that you had to play, and you were either blue or red, and you ran through and you killed so many people that entered a room, and then you would go to the next room, and like it was like a game like Jeopardy or something, but you were in it. So I guess it was kind of like the Running Man in a lot of ways, but I can't remember the name of the game. Do you guys remember at all?
Oh, jeez, no.
Yeah, I had the poster on my wall. I remember it. It was from Nintendo. I remember playing it too, but I can't remember the name of the game. So anybody out there that's listening in podcast land, if you know the name of that game, comment if it's on particularly if it's on our Facebook page and or Instagram or Twitter and we're talking about it, or if you listen to this podcast on YouTube, for example, it's really easy to comment. So shoot us a comment with what was the name of the game, because I can't remember. It's going to drive me nuts.
Then, so my last two, the second one would probably be Legend of Zelda, but I'd much rather be more like an animated series more than a live action.
Oh, okay. So you're like Chris. You definitely want to see Legend of Zelda, but you're thinking more animated than live action.
Yeah, I just can't picture a Zelda movie on the big screen. I just can't, because you're gonna hear it. Because the only problem I have with turning Zelda into a movie is that Link doesn't talk. He hardly ever talks. Most of his games, if you play some of the more recent games, and like very early on in the Zelda series, he never really talks. So for a character that doesn't talk, you're going to have to give this character a voice. And that's going to be tricky, because in your mind, you think Link, you have this vision of Link, about who he is. He's heroic, he's brave, he goes after Ganon, and just everything about the character. But once you take him from game world into live action world, it's going to be it's going to be really hard to envision it. I just don't know if a Zelda movie could work at all. I would say he's far much better as, let's say, as an animated series or anything, because like I said, it's just hard to wrap my head around a Zelda movie. They had
you both want kind of the same thing, but in a different format. I totally get that.
Yeah, I mean,
I can totally understand that.
You don't want to run into another Super Mario Brothers scenario that all of a sudden, like, oh, that's not Link. He doesn't do that. That's not how he's supposed to sound.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was like when Judge Dredd, like with Sylvester Stallone. It's not a bad movie. In fact, I very much enjoy it. But when he took off his helmet, everybody that's a Judge Dredd fan was like out. They were
exactly. And you have, let's say, almost 30 years of stories and materials right there at your fingertips. So you could pull anything from from Twilight Princess to Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, or from those games, which are really good games to play. But it's a challenge. I mean, that one's not. It's not going to be easy, but that's a tough one to really pull off. And last one, I'm going with Mega Man.
Yes.
I would go CGI animated Mega Man series or a film.
Yeah, I couldn't see that live action. Chris, could you see that live action?
Mega Man, no. It's such a weird, wonky world. It needs to be, computer animated.
Remember in Captain N, like when they put Mega Man in there, gave him this really weird voice and changed his color?
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember that, yeah.
Super odd, right?
He was green? I'm like, why is he green? Isn't he blue in games? it never made sense. I'm like, you go from playing the video game Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, and then there's Mega Man on TV. It's like, oh, this is awesome. And then, like, why is he green? And why he has this really slinky voice?
Yeah, he did. It was a really annoying voice.
He did have a better series later on in the franchise's life.
Yeah.
Close. Yeah, it was a little better. At least he looked a little bit more like Mega Man.
Yeah.
You could, like I say, Mega Man, you could easily make him. He's easy to translate. I mean, if you look at, let's say, the render cuts from video games, fully rendered CG, you could easily just like take what's there and just switch them to another medium without even having to redesign or make your version of Mega Man. Just a simple transfer.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Zero
I
money.
love Mega Man. I think putting him in live action, not live action, but computer animated action would be an amazing idea. Chris, did you have any more before we close out?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to mention, I mean, it's not really necessarily a comic book movie that was successful, but because it's sort of based on the book, not the comic, or sorry, video game, with The Witcher, which, it's a book, but it's also a comic book, but it's also a video game.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most successful video game movie, even though it's based on the book. That's
Yeah, they did very well for Netflix if they picked it up for another season.
But the one I really love to see is, even though there's already like a sequel movie to it, I don't really count that, is I'd love to see like a computer animated like TV series of like Final Fantasy VII. Just of that world. Maybe not necessarily the main characters of that world, but other people. I want to like explore that world of Final Fantasy VII more.
Didn't they do an animated, like a computer animated movie for that though?
Yeah, they did do the sequel, but like I said, I'd like just to see like a series where we can explore the world some more.
Would you like to see it in computer animation like they did, or live action?
Probably computer animation, because I feel you can just get that world better, and it would just, I don't know.
Yeah, if you look at like the same thing when I was in Mega Man, if you look at video games now, almost all the characters are completely computer generated, and they look spectacular. So you could take any characters, let's say from Final Fantasy VII, or let's say more recent games of the franchise, and there you go. There's not, like I said, there's not much changes you can do. Just transfer them over to another medium, and there you go. You got Final Fantasy on your TV screen.
I mean, I would love to see just a series with like, was it Valentine, the vampire from that? Do a series about him. Just have him. Vincent. Vincent.
Although, I would love to see them introduce the Gunblade in that series.
You guys are so above where I'm at with this. I barely know the Final Fantasy world, to be honest.
Well, Final Fantasy VII is the greatest role-playing game ever made.
Just stop there at 7, and then after that, just kind of like,
if you have played it before,
what about 1 through 6, guys?
Well, Final Fantasy 6 is great. If you're talking about Final Fantasy 6-3, but 7's better.
There's a Final Fantasy 6-3.
Well, it's Final Fantasy 6, but in America it was Final Fantasy 3. So it's confusing. It's a great game. It is probably the second best role playing game ever made.
Okay.
But Final Fantasy 7 it kind of like changed the way role playing games were made, and it's just, the world is amazing and it's truly spectacular. And they just did the remake that came out last year, and it's phenomenal and fantastic, and definitely worth playing if you have a modern console.
All right. Well, I think we're going to stop there then, because this sounds like the cream of the crop. I don't know where we would go from here, and we're out of time anyway, so that works for me. I just want to mention really quickly that, again, we do have a live video podcast that we do under the Rumble Spoon Productions page on YouTube. You can always find that every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. We also do these audio podcasts that you're listening to right now. They're out on either late Thursday, early Friday. And we have a lot of fun with those as well. They are on a host of podcast platforms like Spreaker, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and a bunch of others. So if you can't find us, let us know, and we'll get on that platform that you have or that you would like to see us on. We're happy to do so. And again, if you have any questions or things or comments that you would like to put forth to us, we do have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can always reach out to us on any of those. Once more, thank you, Chris, for tuning in and being a guest on here. And thank you, Louie, as well. We very much appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. And guys, if we're out anytime soon, perhaps we will see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening, everybody.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.